So I grew up in Birmingham, born and raised. My dad died when I was 4, so from a single parent household, I was just so busy as a child. I think I was so curious about doing different things. And to be honest, youth club saved me in terms of like just really like where I found community. I think it's where I experimented a lot in terms of like just understanding what it is that I like to do.
So I kind of want to move on a little bit to the Elephant Room. What pushed you to co-found that? And I know you co-founded that at the age of 23, which is remarkable. Let's talk about it.
The Elephant Room is built off the back of, I'm sure everyone kind of knows the saying, addressing like the elephant in the room. For us, it's about doing things differently from a perspective when it comes to building our team. It's a very collaborative space, audience first.
So let's talk about the Blacklist first. So what inspired you to create it and what impact have you seen it make so far? So what is the Blacklist?
I've always had it on my list to be on Forbes, but when I deep it and when I look at those lists, I'm not seeing very many Black people or Black women. So it's for all the creative professionals out there that are doing their thing and they just need that empowerment.
Hi, Black Circle family. Thanks for joining us once more. I'm your host, Zoe Cornebert, and today I'm joined by Shannie Mears. Shannie is the co-founder of the Elephant Room, cultural strategist and culture builder. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's lovely to have you here. So I always like to start at the beginning of someone's story. And you're in London now, but it started in Birmingham.
Yes.
So tell me what young Shannie was like in Birmingham.
Young Shannie in Birmingham. So I grew up in Birmingham, born and raised. I moved to London when I was 21. So I did like my education in Birmingham, but I did actually also go to university in Coventry. So sort of moved, still Midlands, but sort of moved. From the age of around 7, I started dancing. So I grew up in like a very like artsy space. So I was involved in the arts for a really long time. Probably I would say properly from about 12 to up until maybe like my early 20s. My dad died when I was 4, so from a single parent household, my mom, she was raising like me, my brother. I have 2 older sisters, but they're like quite significantly older than me. So by that time they had already like left home and stuff like that. So it was really just me, my mom and my brother. A lot of the stuff I used to do, to be honest, is a lot of the stuff when I think about it now, is a lot of the stuff I'm really into now. Like, I'm not dancing anymore, but I still like definitely indulge in like, like music, and I love going to like theatre shows and stuff like that. So it's still definitely a big part of my life. But yeah, young Shani was really just that person, always dancing, always doing something. I was just so busy as a child. And I don't even know if that was intentional. I think I was so curious about doing different things. So whether that be at school and like volunteering or doing, like after school shows and like participating in or like the extracurricular stuff. So when we would go like camping and all of that kind of stuff. Or just, being in youth club and doing a lot of stuff there. So I was really lucky that I got to go to the youth center by me quite early. So I think you had to be maybe like 11 or 12, but I think I started around about 9. And that's just because my brother was going and my aunt at the time was sort of heading it up. So she was just like, oh yeah, she can come, it's fine. And to be honest, youth club saved me in terms of like just really like where I found community. I think that's where I got to exercise a lot of like the things I was into, my skills, my dancing. I think it's where I experimented a lot in terms of like just understanding what it is that I like to do. So we were exposed to things like music, trips, debates. I sat on my first board through like being a part of youth club. And then obviously the other side of things where, you mix with a plethora of different people. A lot of the guys in my area, were going to youth club, and my brother was at youth club, and all his friends were at youth club. So it was a really big bunch of us. But when it comes to like age, when it came to like where we came from, so lots of us came from like different parts of like areas of Birmingham. Yeah, it was really just a cultural hub for me and my friends and like my brother and stuff. To just indulge, like, have fun, be kids and teenagers and experiment with the things that we felt like could be possibilities for us. So, there was like music studios, and we'd do cinema nights, and we'd do dancing, and then we'd do sports. And I feel like a lot of that allowed me to also kind of, similar to what I just said, but just explore like actually what it is, what do I actually enjoy? And I think that's where I really found my love for dancing.
So, it sounds like it was early kind of exposure to networking, really, when you think about it, when you're saying it was a cultural hub. But it also sounds like it's a great confidence builder as well,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
that's, would you attribute that to how you kind of moved through the world, it kind of giving you that early confidence?
Yeah, I think yes and no. I think yes, as in like, hindsight.
Yeah.
Like it's one of them things that's like, hindsight. Yeah, actually. But at the time, I would have said no because I didn't know what those things were. So maybe unintentionally, I was definitely building resilience, building confidence, definitely building like bravery. Because actually, when I think about, to your point about that cultural hub, it was a lot of like networking, and it was a lot of exchange, and it was a lot of like conversation. But at the time, you don't think of it as such. You just think of it as like socializing with your friends or with peers, or that person bought that person and now that's a new friend. And that's kind of how you just kind of saw it. And I think particularly when it even came to like exercising skills, I didn't really look at it as such. I just thought, oh, I'm going to dance. Like I like dancing.
Having
Like
fun.
that's exactly, I'm
Yeah.
just having some fun. But then you realize that actually now that I'm dancing, I'm also being asked to teach. And now that I'm teaching, I'm leading. And now that I'm leading, I'm being asked to share my ideas. And now that I'm sharing my ideas, I'm getting more comfortable about using my voice and all those things. Then obviously then again, to your point, pattern up to, yeah, like my confidence and how I am and how I carry myself throughout the world. And I think it attributes to a lot of things about me, my style. I think it attributes to a lot of like the things that I'm into when it comes to the music I listen to, the things that I like. I like from a content perspective. I think all of that attributes to when I was a young girl. But I can say that now, looking back and really analyzing it and looking at, oh yeah, actually, yeah. But at the time, I think I was just young Shanice. Do you know what I mean? I was just
He's just
the
vibing, just
yeah,
having
just
fun. Yeah, but
exactly.
it's true. It's those
Exactly.
early building blocks, right?
Yeah.
And what kind of is upsetting today is that so many of those spaces are being taken away for young people, and they're really they're losing that, and it's a sad state of affairs. But what do you think kind of carried you from the stage into the boardroom that still serves you today? So we talk about that confidence and
Yeah. I think there's a few things, to be honest. I think my opinion,
Mhm.
like I've always had a bold opinion on different things, and again, not something I actually really thought was even, not say useful. I don't think useful is the right word to use, but not something I thought that people would be wanting to listen to. But actually, from an early age, when I think about it, I've been a part of like youth council, student councils from about 6. So I think that's definitely like something that's like I've just carried through, like being bold in my opinion. um Confidence, but from a perspective, I think confidence is something that I've learned along the way, rather than something that I'd say that, oh yeah, I've always been confident. Because I think I'm actually really comfortable, and I always say that I'd rather be comfortable than confident, because being comfortable for me allows me to then use my voice, or allows me to then step into a space and be like, you know what, actually I'm really comfortable with like the skin I'm in, the clothes I'm wearing, the voice I'm using, the language I'm using. And being able to articulate that in a way whereby people will still listen to me makes me feel then confident about that. And I think, going back to that, I think the area I grew up in, the people I've been around, all of that, I think actually then also there's a level of humility that I think comes with me, and that I think I carry into those spaces as well, because I know where I'm coming from. I know exactly who I am in terms of what the identity makes up of me. And I think when I go into those spaces, I know there's nobody else there but me that has that. And that really again allows me to tap back into the opinions that I have and feel really confident about sharing them. Yeah, I think there's a few, but those are like the things that sort of come to mind right away. And actually as well, I'd say that dancing gave me a really big part of like boldness when it came to performing. I've been performing for a really long time, so obviously I've had to go into stages, we've been to big crowds, and I think I didn't realize that I'd carry that into like, again, to your point, presenting, boardrooms, public speaking, but a lot of that has been built from that as well.
I love that. And you know what I love most is hearing a Black woman say it's like your superpower. Like you are confident, you're not shy to use your voice, because there's so many who have been kind of put off from doing that. So it's nice and refreshing to hear like, no, actually, I took up this space and I did it unapologetically, which is is a great message. So I kind of want to move on a little bit to the Elephant Room. So kind of what pushed you to co-found that? And I know you co-founded that at the age of 23, which is remarkable. Like, let's talk about it.
Thank you. Yeah, so I mentioned that I went to university in Coventry, also was doing dance. So I did dance up until 21, but then during that period of doing like dance and stuff, I was kind of like, I'd say, dabbling in other things that I enjoyed. So, for example, I participated in a fashion show called My Runway, where I was the choreographer and co-creative director with a friend of mine. And now people might know My Runway is now like a hub for Black businesses and creative spaces. So I've known Kojo for a really long time, but then equally as well, I was still teaching. And then I also then got introduced to an agency called Liberty that was doing a lot of stuff amongst youth marketing. So I was doing a lot of like insight workshops. And then I just remember a friend of mine, shout out Fran, she said, we're gonna do an internship and I think you'd be good in marketing. Like I think you should apply for it. And at the time I just was kind of like, okay, like cool. Like, and to be honest, I'm not gonna lie, I just wanted to be in London. So whatever was gonna get me there at that point was like, it was only 6 months, but I thought it's all right. If it's 6 months, I'll figure it out at the end of that 6 months. Let's get there. So I applied for that internship when I was 21. And that was in November. So it would have started the following year, which would have been 2016 at the time. And I would have been turning 22. And I got it and I moved straight away. And then I sort of jumped right into that internship. That was a marketing internship and marketing advertising internship. I then moved on to a bigger advertising agency called Iris. And then once I was there, I was doing lots of different things, participating in different things. But, I suppose still finding my feet. I was an intern, very young. And then I met, well, I say met, but the CEO of that company became like a mentor. And actually, quite quickly, it turned into like a reverse mentoring relationship, and that was really empowering for me because, being 22, coming from Birmingham, being how I am, not really quote unquote fitting in, felt really empowering. That, oh my gosh, like the CEO sees me, like, do you know what I mean? So that continued, and I was there for a year. And then, or just under a year. But then by the end of that, he offered me a job. And then I turned that down politely. And, again, for many different reasons. But he then offered to leave the company with me to start the Elephant Room. At the time we didn't know it was called the Elephant Room, obviously, but yeah, then we started the Elephant Room, which is a creative advertising agency that we committed to ourselves that we were just going to build a bit differently to what was out there at the time. And then now here I am, almost 10 years later.
That is insane. It's fantastic. So but so I've kind of worked in like the WPP and the Publicist and all of that kind of network. I'm sure you're very familiar with it. And so and then you have these smaller agencies that sit within it. So for those who don't know, could you tell us like what the Elephant is and what it does and what the offer is?
Yeah, of course. So we are a creative independent agency The Elephant Room is built off the back of, I'm sure everyone kind of knows the saying, addressing like the elephant in the room. So that was all about setting up a space whereby, well, a creative agency whereby we could address the things that advertising wasn't really addressing, particularly when it came to access, representation, and the wider build of like creative work, you know, like who's behind the scenes and that kind of stuff. And we still operate as an agency would. So if anyone isn't necessarily familiar with like an advertising setup, but you know, you have like creative, you'll have like strategy, you have like your accounts, etc. And we still have that. So we still have clients that come in and we still have that sort of structure per se. But for us, it's about doing things differently from a perspective when it comes to building our teams. It's a very collaborative space, audience first. So we always start with our primary audience when it comes to the research. And often agencies say that. So I'm very aware of that. But for us, it's about actually putting community first. So what's very different about us is that I'm head of, formerly head of talent, now head of community and culture. But that's my responsibility. So to make sure that we have a direct relationship with the communities that we're speaking to, hence why I've built the guest list, things like that. And then also a mentoring program, which I've been doing for the past 6 years. So things like that, more often than not, when you look at typical agency setups or you look at the agency landscape, they build things like, you know, like intern programs, or they'll have like an in-house studio that's a very small part of like the bigger network, but nothing that actually speaks directly to the community where the offering is an exchange. And I think for us, it's about building a talent and community landscape whereby it's beyond just getting a job, or it's beyond just giving them an opportunity when it benefits us, but actually what does that exchange look like on a daily basis? So how can we be offering them the wider access to the industry? And that's my goal, and that's our promise. And then, you know, as an agency, we create great work. Like, you know, our comms agency, we do like, you know, different things like brand activations, digital, social, etc. So people may or may not be familiar with our work, but if you Google us, you'll see. So but for me in particular, my role is rooted in building community, supporting and directly working with our strategists when it comes to like cultural insight, and also just like from an all-round perspective, making sure that the agency itself is always adhering to its promise of representation, and making sure that looks right on all fronts, whatever that looks like.
And we're going to come on to the Blacklist and guest list in a moment. Yeah. But you said, you know, that you called it the elephant room. So what were the elephants in the industry that no one was addressing
at the time? So we're going back to 2016, 2017. So the landscape was a lot different. No one was really, I would say, championing portfolio careers, where young people would like come in and like be really encouraged to do lots of their passion projects and stuff. DEI was just on the sort of the cusp. Like, you know, we were talking about the agent. I remember at the time we were talking about the agency of 2020 and what that would look like in terms of the makeup of the staff and leadership. And that was a big conversation at the time because it was such a white space, and everyone was like, you know, statistics were coming out like millennials were going to take over the workplace, and independents and more localized small businesses and stuff were going to become more a part of the economy, which is true. Like all of those things have happened. But for me personally, when it came to like just my like this is just my direct experience, I felt like there was a real lack of visibility when it came to like Black leadership in particular in advertising, and when it came to understanding where, particularly when it came from a cultural perspective, where Black culture sat. And when I say that, often people are like, oh, like, you know, they'll like name like the one person, and I'm like, well, that's the problem. Like, there is the only one person that you're referencing. Or if you're looking at work, we will talk about work, but we're not crediting where that actual comes from. So people were using like, you know, at the time there was like rappers and, you know, kind of how it goes, and but not referencing actually what does that cultural insight mean though for the community. Like, if we're going to use these people, let's actually talk about what we're doing for the cultural landscape. And I think things like that we were addressing, but in a way whereby it felt like we were putting the audience at the heart of what we were doing. So, for example, for us, it was more about making sure that if we worked with clients, we took them on that journey, and we helped them understand that this is the language we need to be using if we're going to be doing work in this space, or if we're going to be building something that is directed at this audience, we need to be using these types of directors, and not really compromising on those things, and really being able to have an open conversation where people felt like, oh, okay, actually, yeah, I've learned something new today. And it wasn't just like, okay, let's get this work done and do a call sheet, but it's like, no, let's actually really think about what is going into this before we say that we're going to commit to it and then do it as a project. And again, this was 2016, 2017, so it looked a lot different. Having those conversations now, feel like everyone's kind of having them. Like a lot of production companies have been born that are like female led or black owned, and there's a lot of community groups that are centered around access, or that have mentorship groups or internship spaces that have allowed people to like actually tap into the likes of the WPPs or the likes of the industry as a whole, so like advertising, marketing, fashion, etc. So we've definitely moved on from there. There's work to be done, but we've moved on since that 2016 point of trying to convince people that it's okay to say black.
Yes,
do you know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Not BAME, not POC.
Exactly. And BAME was a big conversation back then. It was and you don't really see that now. If you think about it, you don't really see people saying, oh, these are for BAME individual. Like, you actually see people saying black, Asian, might not, all of that. So there is, like, you know, there is movement. But yeah, I suppose that was a lot of the work that we were doing at the time. And our work still sits in that space, but you know, it's broad, isn't it? Because, you know, when I think about my role, like even my title's changed, and that's because the landscape has changed in terms of what the industry needs and wants, and I think we have to be able to move with that. So we're going through also quite a bit of changes, but it remains the same in terms of like the promise of addressing all of those things head on and not being afraid to talk about them when it comes to the boardroom, to your
Absolutely. And it's so interesting, the conversations I have with my guests, and it's like this pre-2020 world and this post-2020 world.
Exactly.
And now that we're in 2025, 5 years on, and it's almost like we've taken a step back a little bit in terms of DEI and just what's happening around all of that. What's the strategy for the Elephant Room in terms of like how DEI is viewed today?
Yeah. You know what? That's so funny. I was asked to do a quote today on something like that for an article, and I don't necessarily think that DEI has quote unquote changed. I definitely think that obviously from a worldview and like we know what's happening in politics and everything at the moment, whereby, you know, the states and stuff they're influencing a lot of that space. So I'm definitely not going to deny that has had an effect on how, you know, people operate in the workplace, people's jobs, all of that. But I don't necessarily think that DEI has quote unquote stopped. I just think that the language is changing. And I think that by language, I mean what people are doing and producing and how people are doing it. There's a shift. So, for example, we talk a lot about community, right? And there's two or three. There's three words that you hear a lot at the moment, and that's the community, culture, and the creator economy. Like a lot of people are talking about like those kind of things. And I genuinely think DEI is in that, like,
it's shifted,
yeah. And when I say DEI is in that, as in you cannot have community, culture, and the creative economy as it stands without DEI.
Absolutely.
Because the people that are driving those spaces are black, are women, are of the LGBTQ community, like they're all of those marginalized groups. And whether or not people want to say it is or it isn't, there is literal articles, receipts, videos out there that will give you the breakdown of why and how that is. So for me, it's more just the language that and how people are now framing it, quote unquote. and what that looks like. So that shift has happened, and now people are trying to implement that into like roles per se, which, to be honest, I think it should be. I think everyone, regardless of their role in a company, has a responsibility and an accountability to stand up for things that are right. And I think it is naturally, quote unquote, right to have a fair view in the workplace. Like, nobody should be superior because of their race or their gender or their class. Like, and I think that everyone has a responsibility to address that, but that's a whole other thing. But I think that, I just think that the language is changing and the landscape of the industry is changing. And because of that, there's a shift from sort of DEI to now, how do we build community? How do we be more authentic with the audiences that we're trying to tap into? Who are the creators that we need to be connecting to get to that audience? And I think that isn't overtly DEI, because actually, that those people that are ruling that space they are probably of the global majority, or they are probably women, or they are, you know what, it's so crazy to me, because the fact that people even like, we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, but the fact that people even don't see that we are in just a diverse ecosystem, particularly when it comes to like advertising and marketing. Like, come on, like, are you seeing the ads that are being created right now? Like, how can you not like look? Do you know what I mean? Like, how can you not look at that and be like, okay, like, this is 100% on the agenda of the, like, do you know what I mean? But I know that there's so much nuance to that though, because DEI isn't just about also what we see and what we're fed through like media and social media and stuff. It also goes way back to your point about the boardroom and the people who are making decisions, stakeholders, and all of that. So I'm very aware of that as well. And there's also work to be done there. But I do think that there are more of also those people that we're seeing at the forefront, and particularly for like founder-led businesses, where the founders are coming forward, like how they've done things, and we're seeing that a lot more in this space. So I think that's kind of where I think the shift is at the moment.
I love that perspective. It's this evolution, right, of what we've come to know, and also I think it's like staying one step ahead. So okay, we came up with woke, we came up with DEI. You guys tried to sully it and make it something that it's not. So now we're gonna evolve it to something else. You can't stop the movement.
Nah, not at all. Like, you can't
do it at all. So talking about some of the kind of the brands that you guys have worked with at the Elephant Room, brands like Barclays, Samsung, Puma. How do you keep things culturally real when you're working with major corporations?
That's a good question. To be honest, it really is just about getting to the result of what the client needs and wants. And I think sometimes, in fact, most of the time, clients are often just afraid to do the wrong thing rather than wanting to do the right thing. And that is definitely problematic. But it is just because, we live in such a sensitive space, a hypersensitive space, I would say, right now in the world, that you can't get a foot wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like,
you're cancelled.
Like,
your whole
cancel
brand.
culture is crazy. Do you know what I mean? So I understand where they're coming from in terms of like the perspective of why they're so afraid. But the reality is, if you don't do anything, then you also get cancelled too, because you don't stand for anything. Do you know what I mean? So when it comes to like cultural relevance, or making sure that the where they're showing up in terms of like cultural spaces is the right spaces or the appropriate spaces, for us it's just about, one, analyzing what it is that they're actually trying to achieve. So what's the long-term goal versus the short-term goal? And more often than not, clients don't always have a long-term goal, if I'm being honest. They have an objective that they're trying to achieve from this particular brief or project. But when it comes to like a long-term vision of how they see that, that's not always the case. So I think sometimes it's that, like, it's just getting to that point. And then once we've like understood that, okay, this is the long-term goal, what are the stages and the steps that it takes to get to that point? And again, like, by default, you have to have the conversation about culture, because that's where they're going to implement themselves, and the culture is then going to decide whether that's right or wrong. And we as their partners, like their agency partners, are also accountable to that. So we have to make sure that we're taking them on the right journey, exposing them to the right information, and helping them you know, from an education perspective, like helping them understand what it is that they're actually now going to be a part of. And really that just takes like conversation, right processes, early implementation, like all of those things. And I think you named like financial institutions there, you named the tech brand, you named sportswear brand, and they're all so different in terms of how they show up in the world and what people will expect from them as well. But actually what you're finding now, I always say, I talk about it quite a bit when on like my LinkedIn, but I really enjoy when brands that you don't typically see operate in a space surprise you and then do something like weirdly good. Do you know what I mean? So
Is there
an example,
yeah,
I was gonna say an example of that is like Oatly with gigs. Like it's just weird, isn't it? But it's so good.
So
like
unexpected.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's unexpected, it's a bit strange, but it's like, okay, sick. Like, and we get it, like, you know, gigs. He's lactose intolerant, he can never find it right, like, you get what I mean, like you get the story, he's told the story, and he's a rapper from South London and it's Oatly, like, do you know what I mean? And that's a really good example of like something that's like weirdly good. But then another one is like Revolut, like they done a massive takeover with Charlie XCX of the hair alternate, and it's just like, you're a bank, like what sense does this make? Like do you know what I mean? But actually when you think about who's using their app, their bank, it is all them Charlie XCX fans, it is all them people who indulge in like music or a night out, and it is those people who want to be entrepreneurs, and you know, there is their audience that they're talking to. So actually a takeover and a concert makes sense, like, and it's so interesting, but it's actually really cool. And I think when brands do that right, it then makes other brands, and it's particularly like the competitors, look around them and think, okay, maybe we can touch them spaces, because actually someone's we're not going to do what they're going to do, but they've shown an example that we can do that. Like, and I don't think you always need the permission. I think you just need to be able to say, yes, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it unapologetically, and we're going to have the audience and the community in mind that we're talking to, and make sure it's appropriate along the way. And I think that's okay.
Appropriate, that's the key word. Have people in the room that are from that culture. That's the main thing. I'm going to change gears just a little bit. I mentioned earlier about the Blacklist and guest list, and I love the guest list, and we're going to talk about it. So let's talk about the Blacklist first. So what inspired you to create it, and what impact have you seen it make so far? So what is the Blacklist?
Throwback. Okay. So when I moved to London, I also was working at Guap magazine. I worked there for 2.5 years. And at first it was literally just me. I was an admirer of the magazine for a long time, like from its inception, really. And I was volunteering writing. So I was just writing for them. Ibrahim became my friend. So I enjoy writing about, like, well, again, this was then. So but I still enjoy writing, but it's changed a bit. But at the time I was like doing like reviews and stuff, and like more like historic stuff. So I think I wrote about like Black Wall Street, for example, and then like I'd maybe write a review on a new up and coming artist. I really enjoyed discovering artists back then. So it was like finding like an underground club and then going to a concert and then talking about why it was like so important for the culture to engage in those spaces, like that kind of stuff. And I was doing that, and it was really fun, and I really felt like that was my way of like still sort of staying connected to those spaces, because I was obviously working in advertising. I'm a 9-to-5, quote unquote. And then I've always had it on my list again then. So I'm talking from 2016 me. To be on Forbes. It was always on my sort of like bucket list. And when I was working at Guap, I had the pleasure of meeting a plethora of different creatives within the industry. So from music to fashion, marketing, entrepreneurs, and it was fascinating. And it was on the rise of also where podcasts were coming through, where people were like trialing and erroring, people were starting their own collectives. It was all that kind of space. It was a really fun time to sort of really be involved in like putting people on. And I just remember Ibrahim and Jide, who were the founders, I just remember saying to them one day, like, I aspire to be on Forbes. That's a personal inspiration. But when I deep it and when I look at those lists, I'm not seeing very many Black people or Black women, and very, very rare British, like you know, that like us, quote unquote. So it was always like a very American skewed viewers anyway. And I said to them, like, but the more we build an authority in the space, Guap, and the more we become a hub for the creators that we're seeing, I feel like there's something that we can really do that's really special in like honoring those people that are behind the scenes as well as in front of the, like, you know, in front of the stage, like, you know, the artists and stuff. So I'm talking about like the lawyers and, you know, the marketers and the writers and the people that we don't often see, because we were seeing them and we were meeting them and we were going out of our way to like champion them on a day-to-day in the magazine. But I was like, but where's the space for them to really be like, yeah, exactly. So I just remember like just thinking, what is it? And if anyone, I mean, Blacklist is using lots of different spaces, but if anyone like knows that word, it's not, it's a negative connotation to the term black, if you like, you know, you're blacklisted or whatever. And that as well kind of felt a little bit like, nah, like it's not, we don't always have to be associated to like a negative connotation when it comes to, you know, our race and, you know,
being blacklisted. Yeah,
exactly. And I wanted to kind of flip that narrative as well. And I said, and I just remember like putting together this like presentation, inviting them to my house and being like, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. I was like, this is what I see. I think we're going to create something called the Blacklist. We're going to do it every year. It's a 30 under 30, similar to like the Forbes of the world, but actually it's for us. So it's for all the creative professionals out there that are doing their thing and they just need that empowerment. And it doesn't necessarily mean they've made it, because, you know, Forbes, again, sometimes it also kind of feels unattainable. If you like, you're doing your thing, but these people have like turned over 1 million or they've do you know what I mean? And it still feels kind of far. And the Blacklist is there for those people too, but it's also for those people that have been doing some serious groundwork and they've just been doing their thing for ages and they're showing up in the workplace, but then they're showing up outside and you just want to see them there because you appreciate the work that they're doing. And that was across, like I said, finance, law, music, fashion, medicine, like all of that. And that was in 2017, I think. And I literally just said to them, don't worry, I got this. I'll do it. You like just give me the permission and give me the platform to do anything. And they were like, yeah. And I was just like, yeah, like I got this. So I brought on one of my friends, Anthea, and told one of my other bridges. I was just like, okay, I got this vision. And here we are. Like now we've been sponsored by, we're in collaboration with Adidas. We've been sponsored by Shivas. We've hosted at the Four Seasons. Like
crazy.
It's like we've had, and I say not every, but a lot of the Black creatives that you've seen over the past 7-8 years, they've probably been on the list, like that you've seen, like, you know, doing their thing now. Like we've been trying to champion for a long time, and that's the one thing that I really appreciate about Guap. If you look back at the people that they were putting on, they were putting on people from ages ago, and we just wanted to continue that legacy really. And I also just remember that I wanted something that would live beyond me. Like Guap isn't mine, but it felt like it was a part of me. And we're still very good friends, and I still feel quite deeply about that list. So it's really, really beautiful to know that it's now in the sort of cultural creative space, and people are like, yeah, I'm trying to get on. Like now that's on their vision board. Do you know what I mean? Like, And when you read through the comments and people love the creative and who's been on it, and people are sharing it because their friends are on it, and that kind of unity that, you know what I mean, that it creates, I think is really important. So yeah.
And like you said, you've created this beautiful legacy that is ours, and we can own that, you know.
Yeah,
You have the
exactly.
Midas touch, I must say. Like, you really do. But so, and then so there's the Blacklist, and then we also have the guest list. And
Yes.
I love the guest list. I'm a part of it.
Yeah, shout out to all the guest
Shout
list
out to the
members.
guest list,
Yeah.
man. We're gonna explain what that is, but it's inclusively exclusive space. So why did you kind of feel the need to set up that type of a network, and what is that network?
So there's a few different reasons why I set up the guest list. When I moved to London, a lot of the communities that I joined was attached to my identity. And by that I mean as in, like, I was invited to like women's networks, or I'd be invited to like a Black founders something, or I'd be a part of a WhatsApp group for Black creatives, or it was always centered around like what I was made, my identity. Yeah. And that's great. So shout out to them spaces. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think when we're thinking about equity and we're thinking about the wider spaces of the world, I think there needs to be a space where everyone can come together. And I often felt like I couldn't find those spaces. So if I needed something that was outside of me, it was hard to grasp, like, do you know what I mean? Like, and I was a part of a network, I still am, to be fair, called She Said So. Shout out them as well. And it's an incredible network for women in music and media. And I remember joining it, and I just remember being in the emails, and I'd see things like, "Hey everybody, is anyone at the Grammys this weekend?" And I'll be thinking, what kind of network am I in? That people are going to the Grammys? Or is anyone in LA? Or if you're in New York or I'm in London, and I was just like, this is lit. Like, I was thinking, who are these? Who am I in this group with? Like, this is crazy. Do you know what I mean? And at the time, again, this is back then, I didn't really know people like that. So it wasn't a case where I could just be like, yeah, me. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't of that sort of quote unquote, I didn't have that reputation. So I was very much just listening, like I say, social listening. But being a part of that really inspired me, and it really made me then, when I did start to like build my network, and I really did start to build my community and stuff, I did then start to get invited to like really cool stuff. And at one point it actually became too much, but I always felt bad because I felt like if I don't go, okay, but then someone else would have liked that, or how else do I pass that on? And I'm also very conscious, which again, nothing wrong with putting your friends on, because I'm all about putting my bedrooms on, but it becomes an echo chamber if you just continuously give out the opportunities to your friends, and I mean like your direct mates, and sometimes they're not even into what you're into. So it is better that it's wider. Do you know what I mean? But then equally to that point as well, I had just stepped into starting the business at the Elephant Room, my role, and really shaping what that role meant for me, like being head of talent, being someone who was tapped into networks. And I had to prove that, like, I am that person. But how do I center that? Like, what does that mean for us? But then equally, what does that mean for when I'm building out my space and carving out my role? And I was thinking about all those things, and I just remember going to my friends, I'm like, I'm gonna start something called the Guest this year, and I'm gonna add all of you lot. Just being there. It didn't even require them to do anything. I just needed them to be in there. And then I just asked each of them to just invite one friend. So that was probably about 10 in people. And then it was obviously that then became 20, and, you know, vice versa. And the reason why the name is because, you know, every time you go out, you're trying to get on the guest list, didn't it? Like, everyone's trying to get guest list. So I just thought, yeah, like, of course. But it still needed to be a safe space. So for me, it was about making sure that, you know, it still was about access. There is no entry without value. So you have to be willing to share. You have to be willing to connect. you have to come with an open mind and no profanity. Do you know what I mean? Like nothing negative, nothing that will make other people feel like they're less than or can't sit with us, that kind of vibe. Do you know what I mean?
It's not
Like
clicky at
yeah,
all.
exactly. Like it is a very open space for everybody. And now we're like almost 3,000 people
Is
and
it
counting.
3,000 people
Yeah, yeah.
now? Wow.
And we're just building, and it's great. It's like, I
Yeah.
mean, you're a part of it, and I'm not even being biased. Like it is a really great
It's
space.
a fantastic space. It really is.
Yeah, like I like, even me, it surprises me sometimes. I put something in there, 10 minutes, I've got what I need, and I'm like, yo, like you lot are real serious soldiers. Like, do you know what I mean? And I really appreciate that. So, um. And again, for anyone that doesn't fully understand it, it's an email forum where you're invited into it, which is the inclusively exclusive bit. And obviously, if you're a part of that, and then you just get daily updates of emails where you're either being invited to things, or there's call outs, or there's events, or there's resources, or there's skills, or there's a job, or there's people are asking for contact networks. There's communities that, like, it's so random, but
it's so vital for me, especially when I do shout outs for like podcast guests
yeah,
or just
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
advice, or I'm working on a project, or can I have this contact? Like,
Yeah.
for me, it's really, really, really helped and shaped the way that I'm working creatively, just to be
Amazing.
part of that network. So
Yeah,
just for me to
yeah.
say thank you for that, like,
Oh, that's
honestly.
okay. No, that's honestly, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Like it's a really beautiful thing where people, like, again, to your point, have said like, it's opened my mind to X, or it's shaped this for me, or it's exposed me to this, because that's what it's also supposed to be, a place of discovery. Like we're supposed to discover at like each other's talents, and we're supposed to be tapped into things that are new, because actually when you think about it, and particularly with me and my role, like it's evolved, to your point earlier, but equally I've changed. I've become a mom. I'm older now, and a really great way for me to stay tapped in is clocking in on the Guestlist and just see what's going on. Like sometimes I'm just reading through. To be honest, I read through it every day, but yeah, and I'm just like, yo, there's some real cool stuff happening. Like,
truly,
do you know what I mean? And that's also just a great way to stay tapped in. And I think that's also a big part of, I would say, as an agency, having that access through me, obviously, because it's a part of my role to be tapped in. But I don't think there's very many people in the quote unquote corporate world recognizing and understanding how vital those spaces are. Never mind creating them. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not even saying that as like, well done me. Like, I'm just saying, like, it is so necessary that 15, 14, 25 places like Guestlist exist. And I can name you some places, but actually it's still not enough. So my thing is just that making sure it multiplies. So that's why I say, like, everyone's invited. Everyone, it doesn't matter what you look like, who you like, where you come from, what color you are, what age you are. Like, everyone is invited, but you just have to be willing to share so that we can multiply the access.
Yeah, and multiply the value.
And the value, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Changing gears again.
Yeah.
From your lecturing days at Kingston University, what were you trying to pass on to the next generation of creatives?
Wow. What am I trying to pass on to the next generation of creatives? Really, I talk a lot about empowerment and being empowered. And the reason why I do that is because the gentleman I co-founded the business with, Dan, he some years ago now, he probably doesn't even remember, but he said to me that I really want you to feel empowered to say no. And for me, that was like it was in passing even, but it was so powerful because no one's ever really said that to me. No one's ever really given me the permission to turn down something.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Or be like, nah, that's not for me, or nah, that's not my vibe, or whatever. And and he knows this. When I don't want something, or I stand for something so hard, I am passionate about it. But more often than not, I'm passionate about the things that I want to create. So the access things and the programs and the communities and stuff like that. So if there's anything I would want to pass on to like the next generation, is to be so bold and brave about what it is that you want and you need in order to further not just yourself but the people around you, because community is very important. And to never be afraid of that, like, because sometimes we're even afraid of our own ideas, so that we procrastinate so much.
Oh yes.
Like we don't even do it, or we think we're not ready, or there's always been not enough of something, whether it be not enough money, not enough knowledge, not enough networks. But if there was anything I was going to pass on, and this is what I used to say to my students, guys, use what you have in front of you right now. And right now there's this, as in the building we're in, there's the peers that you're amongst, there's Google, like there's so much resource around you that you honestly don't even know it. And day by day, like, give yourself grace in the process, because that's where you'll learn and you'll fail and you'll learn and you'll fail and you'll learn and you'll fail, but that's okay. Like, do you know what I mean? Because that's the whole point and the whole intention. So if anyone was to remember me for being anything, it would be for being bold and being brave and doing what I say I was gonna do. Do you know what I mean? Like, for standing on what I said I would do and having evidence of that. And I think that's really important, because I think I like to be a woman of my word.
Right.
And I think that it's important that we continue to not only build up ourselves but each other, but the only way we can do that is by doing. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I love that. We're never truly without. And even if it weren't the building and it wasn't the Google, there's that natural born talent.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like, I love the saying, success is on the other side of fear.
Yeah.
And I try to let that carry me a little bit,
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And I love quotes, and I don't know if this is his quote, but he's the person I heard say it, and that's Jim Carrey. And he said, if you're it's like, you could fail at doing something you hate, so why not go for something you love anyway?
Yes.
And that to me is so true. Like, you just do it, in it, because at least you know that you did it and you loved it, rather than sticking at something that you don't want to do. Like, do you know what I mean? And I think, again, obviously, I know things are circumstantial, people can't always do it right away, but I think we should always have the intent. Do you know what I mean?
So when you think about your next 5 to 10 years, what are you building towards for yourself and your community?
And
I feel like you've done so much already, but
that's a good question. Next 5 to 10 years. Okay, let me figure out how old I'm gonna be.
Still very young.
Yeah, still very young. Well, I mentioned that I'm a mom now.
Yeah.
So I think the next 5 to 10 years in particular will probably be me focusing on something that serves creatives in that new phase of life, like parents and carers, and just I'm exposed to new life at the moment, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, like it's a hard space to navigate, coming from having free time, doing anything you want, planning any days you need, to now not being able to do that, planning meticulously, having a priority over yours. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of things have shifted. So for me, if I'm thinking about the next 5 to 10 years, it's just thinking about, okay, what does my son need? And how can I build a better space for those who contribute to not only his village but mine? So again, to your point, as someone that's experiencing this, how can I share that experience wisely and then have practical impact on those that are probably in the similar position? But I don't know what that looks like, if I'm honest. I don't know, and often I'm inspired by the things I'm around, and I've got like a really beautiful sisterhood, and one of my friends, Jamelia, shout out her too, she said to me, and actually my other friend Candice, they've both said it, that since becoming a mom, I've not necessarily changed, just evolved and stepped into like almost like my purpose. So like they don't remember the me before. And honestly, I don't think even they know how much that makes me feel like empowered, because so much of me is questioned, like, am I doing it right? Am I going to be all right? Is this going to be okay? Can I still do that? Will I be able to give my ideas and then still, like, do you know what I mean? So much of me has questioned like my ability, but the fact that like my direct people have seen that actually, nah, like you're meant to be here, like you're meant to be doing this, like this is now a whole new you, but in a great way. That makes me now feel empowered to go to continue to build or do something. So actually thinking about it now, I think if I'm going to do something, I know that it would definitely be rooted in doing something for parents, but I just don't know what it looks like.
That's beautiful. That really is. I was getting a little bit teary-eyed. You like just that support and pouring of love from your sisters and from your circle. And also for women who are kind of scared to be like, okay, I know I want to start a family, but I also know that I've got my career. So for you to say that actually this is an evolution of myself, I'm stepping into like my purpose, it made me more aligned. You know, it shouldn't always be seen as a negative thing. Obviously do what's right for you, but it shouldn't always be seen as a negative. Like you can't have both, you know.
Definitely, like definitely. And also my child was not planned, so for anyone out there listening, trust me, you do not, like, the plan never, sometimes you just can't plan. Do you know what I mean? Like I did not plan to be here, quote unquote. And I have a beautiful child who I love deeply. Me and his dad co-parent. Like my whole life was not planned. Do you know what I mean? Like this setup wasn't planned, but actually I really enjoy it. Like I really enjoy the space I'm in and the peace that I'm in as well. And I think that that's important. So I think, yes, we may not be able to do all of it right at the same time, but we can do it all. Do you know what I mean? So we got to pace ourselves. And I think that I've learned that, like, you know, something's got to give. So right now I've taken a little bit of time off work to spend more time with my baby, but then that's going to flip one day where I'm going to do more time in work, and then my baby's going to probably be somewhere else. And I'm okay with that because I know that I'm going between the two and it's about a rhythm that works for me. So I think Michelle Obama said it, like, you know, we can do it all, just not all at the same time. And I think it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when you look back on everything you've created, the agency, the list, the community, what's the one message you hope it leaves behind?
What's the one message? I don't know if it's just one, but I just want people to feel seen, especially those that sometimes feel like they're working so hard and it's just not working out, or it's not going the way it's planned and stuff. And I think a lot of the things that I've created and a lot of the work that I do and that I'm passionate about is just making sure that the community feels seen and feels empowered and feels inspired, because there's always a story out there that you'll be able to relate to. And hopefully, you know, the platforms that I've been able to contribute to and create, you can find those stories. And I think that it's also important that I say it all the time, and I've said it a few times already, but we've got to give ourselves some grace. Like, you know, I think there is so much out there right now when it comes to social media about people, you know, saving 100 grand or 50 grand or doing a house renovation. And, you know, a founder just sold for 50 million and 5 million. And I'm just like, and also shout out those people, by the way. So that is not even a oh my gosh, like that is that's great for them, and it's incredible for what those people are achieving, but that's 0.5% of life,
right?
Do you know what I mean? Like, real life is happening for a lot of people in different circumstances. And if you're somebody watching that and feeling the sort of like, oh man, like I wish that was me, or but it's just like, just pace yourself. Like, it's not that it can't be you, or it's not even that it won't be you, and it might not be you, but you might have a different story.
Right.
And I think that that's okay. But I think that what we're fed and the things that we're exposed to, especially as creatives, that, you know, like, this person's got this and this person's been able to get that opportunity, it's lifted up. But actually, like, each, like, it is just a day at a time, and it's easier said than done, I know. But I really do hope that the message out there that I put, and I always say that when I portray myself online, I hope I'm portraying the most realist version possible.
I think you do.
Do you know what I mean? And yes, I have these things, or yes, I've been able to achieve these things, but everything also comes at a price. Do you know what I mean? So sacrifice is also behind that. And a lot of the time, people don't really know the full story of things that have happened or why they've happened. And I think we've just got to give ourselves grace and pace ourselves. And I say that to everybody. So that's what I hope my message is. Like, just
comparison is the thief of joy. And
honestly.
I think, like, you know, just, I follow you on socials and LinkedIn. I think you do show yourself in the totality, like the good, the bad, the struggles, the highs, the lows. And like I said, if everybody kind of just stays in their own lane and just remembers reality is, like you said, that 5% are doing it and they're doing it well, but the journey might look a little bit different for you.
Exactly.
Which is fine, you know.
Exactly that.
Okay, so coming to a close, I always like to ask my guests about a value. So one value that they hold for their professional life and one value they hold for their personal life. So one for your professional life.
One value that I hold for my professional life, I love Maya Angelou. And one of her quotes that I've slightly sort of made into my own is, what is the point of learning if it's not your intention to teach? And I live by that, to be honest.
Love that. And for your personal life?
My personal life is that that's the word. And faith also doesn't happen without the work. And I think that that's important. And I think that I'm also stepping into a new phase of, like, owning my journey with Christ and sharing what that faith means to me. And I 100% would not be out here without Jesus. So I know that. So and regardless of what your faith is, I think that you have, I personally, and I deeply do believe that we have to be accountable to something as humans, and we have to be led right. And obviously that looks different for a lot of different people, but for me, Jesus is the way.
I love that. That's a beautiful note to leave it on. Shannie, thank you so much. I've been really inspired by this chat today, so I hope everybody listening has as well. If people want to follow your journey, where can we find you?
So on social media, on Instagram, I'm Shannie Loves, so SHANNIELOVES, and on TikTok as well, I'm Shannie Loves. On LinkedIn, my name is Shannie Mears, because Shanice is my full name. So Shannie Mears, and you'll find FRSA to, like, identify me on LinkedIn. And if you want to follow the Elephant Room and the stuff that we're doing, it's Elephant Room UK, which is in my bio on Instagram anyway.
Brilliant. Thank you so much once more. And guys, thank you for joining in. And if you want to follow the Black Circles journey, we are on Instagram on the Black Circle Podcast, and YouTube and TikTok, all on the Black Circle Podcast. Like, follow, subscribe. Thank you, guys.